Florisvaldo de Oliveira, better known as Cabo Bruno, was a former police officer in São Paulo, Brazil, who became one of the most notorious figures in the country during the turbulent 1980s. His story encapsulates the dangerous overlap between law enforcement and vigilantism in a period marked by rampant crime, corruption, and widespread public distrust of official institutions. Cabo Bruno joined the São Paulo military police in the late 1970s, a time when the city was grappling with escalating violence and crime, particularly in its sprawling favelas. As a member of the police, Bruno quickly gained a fearsome reputation for his involvement in a vigilante death squad. This clandestine group, made up of police officers like Bruno, operated under the pretext of restoring order to crime-ridden neighborhoods. However, their methods were brutal and often illegal, involving extrajudicial killings of individuals they labeled as criminals without any due process or evidence. Many of their victims were petty criminals, drug addicts, or simply poor residents who had the misfortune of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The death squad led by Bruno was particularly active in the poorer areas of São Paulo, where law enforcement was often seen as an extension of the oppressive state rather than as a protector of citizens. Residents in these areas lived in constant fear, not just of the criminals but also of the police officers who were supposed to safeguard them. The squad's operations were marked by ruthless efficiency. They would ambush their targets in the dead of night, often using unmarked cars and civilian clothing to avoid detection. Bodies were frequently found with multiple gunshot wounds, dumped in public spaces as a grim warning to others. Despite these brutal tactics, a portion of the public initially viewed Cabo Bruno and his squad as heroes. In a society plagued by a failing justice system and ineffective policing, Bruno was seen by some as a necessary evil, a man willing to do what the law could not. This sentiment was fueled by sensationalist media coverage that portrayed him as a vigilante who was taking out dangerous criminals and cleaning up the streets. However, as the bodies piled up and the true extent of the death squad's activities became known, public opinion began to shift. The indiscriminate nature of the killings and the lack of accountability eventually led to widespread outrage. In 1983, after years of operating with near impunity, Cabo Bruno was arrested. His trial became a national spectacle, drawing attention to the deep-rooted issues of police brutality and corruption in Brazil. During the proceedings, Bruno was accused of being directly involved in the deaths of over 50 people, though the true number is believed to be much higher. His defense hinged on the argument that he was merely doing what was necessary to protect society from criminals. However, the court found him guilty of multiple murders, and he was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. While in prison, Cabo Bruno became a controversial figure. He underwent a religious conversion, becoming an evangelical pastor, and began to express remorse for his past actions. Yet, he also maintained that his actions were driven by a desire to protect society and that he had been abandoned by the very system he had served. His time in prison was marked by a mix of penitence and defiance, as he struggled to reconcile his past with his newfound faith. After serving more than 27 years behind bars, Bruno was released in 2012, having received a conditional release due to good behavior. His return to society was met with a mix of curiosity, fear, and anger. Many questioned whether a man responsible for so much bloodshed should ever be allowed to walk free. His release was short-lived, however. Just a few months later, in September 2012, Cabo Bruno was shot multiple times near his home in Pindamonhangaba, São Paulo. The circumstances surrounding his death remain shrouded in mystery, but it is widely believed that he was the victim of a revenge killing, possibly orchestrated by those who had lost loved ones at his hands. Cabo Bruno's life and legacy continue to haunt Brazil. His story is a stark reminder of the dangers posed when law enforcement operates outside the boundaries of the law and it highlights the complex and often tragic consequences of vigilante justice. The case of Cabo Bruno serves as both a cautionary tale and a reflection of the deep-seated issues of crime, corruption, and justice that Brazil continues to grapple with to this day.